The rain fell in heavy, unrelenting sheets, washing the world in a blur of gray, as if even the sky mourned with him. Alexander Hartwell, one of the wealthiest men in the world, stood frozen before a cold marble tombstone. His tailored suit, impeccable as always, was soaked through, yet he hardly noticed. The umbrella he carried had long been forgotten, clutched in one hand like a fragile shield against a grief he had no words for. Today marked the 5th anniversary of the day he lost his daughter, Emily, a brilliant, spirited little girl who had been the sunlight in his life, now gone, leaving him in a shadow that no amount of money could dispel. He knelt, placing a hand on the smooth, cold stone, his other hand trembling as he traced the delicate engraving of her name. Memories came flooding back, sharp and unrelenting, the sound of her laughter echoing through the hallways of his mansion, her small hand slipping into his during long walks in the park, the tiny voice that would call out, "Daddy, I love you," just as the sun began to set. All of it gone, and in this moment, surrounded by nothing but the wind and the relentless rain, he realized that no boardroom victory, no corporate conquest, no luxurious estate could ever fill the void she had left behind. As he bowed his head, struggling to keep his composure, a sudden, muffled sound reached his ears. At first, he thought it was just the wind whistling through the cemetery trees, but the sound persisted, soft, sorrowful, unmistakable crying. He lifted his gaze and saw her, a little girl, no older than 7, clutching a worn teddy bear, standing beside a man in a janitor's uniform. The man's shoulders shook, tears streaming freely down his face as he knelt by another grave, whispering words Alexander couldn't hear. The child looked up, her eyes red and swollen, yet she seemed hesitant to step away from the man who was clearly as heartbroken as she was. Alexander froze. In all his years, he had seen wealth and privilege, he had seen sorrow and despair in boardrooms and hospitals, but this was different. There was no pretense here, no expectation of admiration, no business deal, no facade of composure, just raw, human grief. And yet, there was something about this scene, a quiet, fragile beauty, that pulled at him more fiercely than anything he had ever experienced. A strange impulse overtook him. He approached slowly, careful not to startle them. The janitor looked up, his face streaked with dirt and tears, and for a moment neither spoke. The child held her teddy bear tighter, sensing the tension, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. Alexander, despite his suit and his wealth, felt utterly out of place. He was a man who had spent his life commanding rooms, controlling outcomes, and bending circumstances to his will. Yet here, in this humble corner of the cemetery, he felt powerless. "Are you okay?" he asked finally, his voice soft, almost a whisper. The janitor blinked, startled, as if the sound of another human voice in this private moment was both a shock and a comfort. The man shook his head, unable to form words. The child stepped forward, a small, tentative hand brushing against Alexander's sleeve. There was a silent plea in her eyes, a need for comfort, for someone to acknowledge their pain. And Alexander, who had spent a lifetime measuring success in numbers and accolades, understood in that instant that the most important currency in the world was something money could never buy: compassion. The rain continued to fall, drenching them all, but it no longer felt cold. Somehow it felt like a baptism, a cleansing of grief, a permission to feel, to mourn, to connect. Alexander knelt beside them, awkwardly at first, unsure how to bridge the gap between his world and theirs. But the janitor, a man named Samuel, and the little girl, Lily, slowly began to open up, sharing memories of the life they were grieving. Samuel spoke of his wife, who had passed away the previous year, leaving him to care for Lily, his niece, who had lost her parents in a car accident. The weight of responsibility, grief, and loneliness had been crushing, yet here, in the presence of someone who had nothing in common with their lives but everything in understanding. There was a strange, healing connection. Alexander listened, offering no solutions, no empty words of encouragement, simply presence. And in that presence, something miraculous happened. The walls he had built around his own heart began to crumble. The grief he had buried under luxury, under business, under pride, surged forth in a torrent. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the rain, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to truly weep. At that moment, he realized that grief was not something to be conquered or hidden. It was a bridge, a shared experience that connected even the most unlikely souls. He held Lily's small hand in his, feeling the warmth, the fragility, and the trust she extended. Samuel rested a hand on his shoulder, a silent acknowledgement that they were all, somehow, in this together. The sun, hidden behind thick clouds all morning, began to break through, casting a soft golden light over the cemetery. The rain slowed, dripping gently from the leaves, and for the first time, the three of them laughed. A small, fragile laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. It was the sound of shared humanity, of hearts beginning to mend. Alexander learned things that day he could never have bought. The resilience of the human spirit, the beauty in acts of quiet courage, the profound impact of simply being present for someone else. Over the weeks and months that followed, he and Samuel forged a friendship born of grief but strengthened by hope. Alexander helped Samuel secure a stable job and better living conditions, not out of charity alone, but out of genuine care. He enrolled Lily in a local school, ensuring she had opportunities he knew she deserved, and spent countless hours mentoring her, sharing lessons not in money or status, but in kindness, resilience, and hope. Through them, Alexander found a way to honor Emily's memory. He realized that the love he had lost did not have to be confined to sorrow and silence. It could ripple outward, touching lives in ways he had never imagined. The janitor and the little girl, whose paths had seemed so far removed from his own, became a lifeline, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, connection, compassion, and kindness could illuminate the soul. Viewer engagement cue. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps spread stories like these that remind us what truly matters. Months turned into years, and the trio continued to grow together. Alexander, once a man isolated by wealth and grief, became a figure of quiet generosity, a mentor, and a friend. Samuel found stability, purpose, and the confidence to pursue his own dreams, while Lily thrived, surrounded by the love of people who had chosen to step into her world when she needed them most. And yet, it was not just about what Alexander could give. It was about what he had learned to receive, the courage to be vulnerable, the humility to accept help, and the joy of forming bonds that could never be quantified. He realized that wealth, fame, and influence were meaningless if they could not touch hearts, if they could not heal wounds, if they could not build bridges where walls had existed. One evening, standing once again before Emily's grave, Alexander reflected on the strange, beautiful path his life had taken. He looked at Samuel and Lily walking hand in hand a few steps behind him, their laughter carrying softly through the cemetery. He knew he had found a new purpose, not as a billionaire who amassed riches, but as a man who had learned the true value of human connection, compassion, and love. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, he whispered a quiet promise that Emily's memory would live on, not just in his heart, but in every life he touched, in every act of kindness he inspired, and in every bond forged from sorrow and hope. Special request: if this story touched your heart, please leave a comment sharing how it made you feel. Your words can inspire someone else today. Viewer engagement cue. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that no matter how lost we feel, there is always hope, always a chance to heal, and always a way to make a difference in someone else's life. And so, the billionaire who once stood alone, drowning in grief, learned a truth far richer than any fortune could provide, that love, compassion, and human connection are the treasures that endure beyond life, beyond loss, and beyond time itself. In the quiet embrace of a rainy cemetery, surrounded by a janitor and a little girl, Alexander Hartwell discovered a world renewed, not through wealth, but through the simple, profound act of being present, of caring, and of letting his heart finally open again.